The Galactic Palace stood like a frozen mountain of silver and light. Every wall shimmered with stars trapped in crystal. Soldiers in black armor guarded the halls, but no one dared to speak. Even their boots touched the floor softly, afraid that one wrong sound would reach the ears of the Queen of Galaxies. She ruled thousands of worlds, and her voice alone could destroy a planet. Inside her great hall, time itself felt afraid to move. The Queen sat upon a throne made of glowing stone, her crown floating like a ring of fire above her head. Her eyes, two burning suns, watched everything but cared for nothing. No one had spoken to her directly in many years. Those who tried had vanished. She was power, beauty, and fear mixed into one being. Down below, where the light dimmed, a human janitor worked. He wore a gray uniform, his face marked by years of quiet labor. He was one of the few humans allowed inside the palace, cleaning the marble floors and polishing alien metal statues that reached the ceiling. His name was Elias Trent, but to everyone else he was just the janitor. Each night when the Queen's court ended, he came with his small cleaning cart, silent as a shadow. No one noticed him. The alien nobles passed him without a glance. He was human, too ordinary, too soft for their shining world. But Elias did his work faithfully. He was careful never to lift his head toward the throne. Yet Elias was not alone. He had a daughter, a little girl named Mira. She was 7, bright-eyed and full of questions. Since her mother's death, Elias had kept her close, bringing her quietly to the palace's servant quarters. She loved to draw and build small toys from scrap metal he found in the cleaning rooms. He always warned her, never go near the main hall. The Queen doesn't like noise. But one evening, fate forgot to listen. Elias was late finishing his shift. The vast hall gleamed under cold lights, empty except for him. Mira waited in the corridor, bored and sleepy. In her small hands, she held the toy she had made that day, a tiny starbird carved from old metal wire and a blue marble. It didn't work well, but when she twisted it, its wings shimmered like glass. She smiled proudly, then looked up. The giant doors to the throne room were half open. She heard nothing, not a sound. Curiosity whispered louder than fear. Step by step she entered. The floor was smooth like ice, reflecting her tiny footsteps. High above, banners of alien silk drifted slowly. The Queen sat motionless, her head turned toward the stars beyond the glass wall. She seemed like a statue of living light. Mira stopped halfway to the throne, clutching her toy. At that moment, Elias returned and saw the open doors. His heart froze. "Mira!" he whispered harshly, running forward. But before he could reach her, the guards stepped into the light, raising their weapons. The sound of moving armor broke the silence. The Queen's head tilted slightly. Her eyes flicked downward, cold and glowing. "Who enters my hall?" Her voice echoed like thunder through water. Elias fell to his knees, his hands shaking. "Forgive her, Your Majesty," he stammered, his voice trembling. "She's just a child. She meant no harm." The guards aimed their spears. Mira looked around, frightened but still holding the toy. The Queen rose from her throne. Every step she took sounded like distant thunder. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Elias tried to pull his daughter back, but Mira looked up at the tall figure before her, the woman everyone feared, and did something no one in the galaxy had ever dared. She smiled. With small trembling hands, she held out the broken toy. "It's for you," she said softly. You looked sad. The hall went silent again, deeper than before. The Queen stopped. Her eyes, those two burning suns, flickered. She looked at the toy, at the tiny girl standing unafraid before her. Every guard in the room waited for the order that would end the human child's life, but none came. Instead, the Queen slowly lowered herself until her face was level with Mira's. Her voice was a whisper now, almost human. "For me?" Mira nodded. "Yes, it's a starbird. It flies when it's happy." Something unthinkable happened. The Queen reached out, touched the small toy, and smiled. Elias gasped. The guards exchanged shocked glances. The universe seemed to pause. A beam of soft light fell through the window, touching both the Queen and the child. For the first time in centuries, the throne room of the Galactic Queen was not silent. A heartbeat of warmth had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The guards stood frozen like statues, their weapons still aimed at the little human girl. The silence was heavier than steel. Everyone inside the throne room knew what should have happened. No one touched the Queen, no one spoke to her, and no one survived breaking that law. Yet here was a child, a fragile human girl standing before the most feared ruler in the galaxy. And she had made the queen smile. That smile was small, barely there, but it was real. And for those who saw it, it was enough to shatter everything they believed about their queen. Elias couldn't move. His knees pressed against the cold marble floor. He couldn't tell if he should cry in relief or terror. He had seen the queen destroy entire fleets with a single command. Now she was holding his daughter's toy with hands that had once crushed empires. The queen looked down at the tiny starbird resting in her palm. The blue marble shimmered faintly, catching the light of the palace suns. "You made this?" she asked in a voice so quiet that even the guard's sharp hearing barely caught it. Mira nodded. "It's not perfect. Daddy said I should make it better next time. But I thought maybe you'd like it." Elias's heart nearly stopped. He wanted to tell her to stop talking, to run, to hide, but something deep inside him whispered that this moment was different. The queen studied the child. Around her the air glowed softly, the energy fields that always surrounded her calming down as if responding to her heart. The guards, uncertain, looked toward the royal commander for orders. None came. The commander's face was pale under his silver helmet. He dared not speak. Finally, the queen turned her gaze toward Elias. "This is your child?" "Yes, your majesty," Elias whispered, bowing so low his forehead touched the ground. "Please forgive her. She's only a child. She meant no disrespect." The queen's voice remained calm. "She has done what no noble, no priest, and no general has dared for 1,000 years," she said. "She spoke to me, without fear." The words echoed across the hall like a slow wave. The nobles standing near the back began whispering. The queen, who had not spoken more than a few words to anyone in years, was talking. And not just talking, she was speaking gently. Mira blinked, unsure why everyone looked so scared. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked softly. The queen's eyes softened just for a second. "No, little one," she said. "You reminded me that I am still alive." Elias looked up, confused. What could that mean? The queen stepped back toward her throne. The guards lowered their weapons slowly, afraid even to breathe too loudly. The commander swallowed hard and took one careful step forward. "Your Majesty, shall we remove them?" The queen didn't answer immediately. She looked again at the starbird, still glowing faintly in her palm. Then she turned her eyes to Mira. "No," she said at last. "They will stay." The commander's eyes widened. "Stay, Your Majesty?" She sat back upon her throne, her crown flickering with faint blue fire. "Yes," she said. "I wish to speak with them again." The commander bowed deeply, but inside fear spread like wildfire. This was something dangerous, something forbidden. The queen had broken her own rule. Elias took Mira's hand tightly and whispered, "Don't say anything, sweetheart. We must leave quietly when she allows it." But Mira's eyes were still fixed on the queen, shining with innocent wonder. As the queen dismissed the court, the nobles left in silent panic. No one dared question her aloud, but whispers filled the corridors. The queen smiled. The queen spoke. A human child made her do it. By the time Elias returned to his small quarters deep below the palace, the story had already begun to spread through the star systems. On the spaceports of Titan Prime, on the moon colonies of Seraphis, on the mining world of Kaltor, rumors danced through communication lines faster than light. The Galactic Queen, the untouched, the silent monarch, had smiled. Elias sat on the edge of his small metal bed, his hands shaking. "Mira," he said softly, "you must never tell anyone what happened." "Promise me, but why, Daddy?" she asked. She wasn't scary. She was sad. "I just wanted to make her happy," he sighed. "Because people fear what they don't understand. And fear can turn into something worse." Mira frowned, holding her small starbird kit box. "But maybe if they see she can smile, they won't be afraid anymore." Elias wished that could be true. He kissed her forehead and tucked her into bed. But sleep did not come easily that night. Far above them, in the highest tower of the palace, the queen sat alone once more. She held the small toy in her hand, turning it over carefully, watching its broken wings shimmer. Memories long buried stirred within her. The laughter of a little alien girl with silver eyes, the one she had lost in the Great War. She whispered softly to the toy, "You fly when you're happy, do you not?" Her voice trembled for the first time in centuries. A single tear rolled down her cheek, glowing faintly before vanishing into light. Outside her chamber, the stars burned quietly. But something new had awakened in the galaxy, something fragile, something human, and soon every world would feel the tremor of that forbidden smile. By morning, the story had already escaped the palace walls. No one knew who first told it, perhaps a trembling guard, perhaps a servant who overheard the Queen's words. But by the second sunrise, every corridor of the Galactic Palace buzzed with the same impossible rumor. The Queen smiled. For 1,000 years, she had ruled in silence, her voice a storm that crushed worlds, her face a mask of stone. Yet now whispers traveled faster than light. A human child, they said, a janitor's daughter made her smile. In the palace kitchen, the alien cook spoke in hushed tones. "Did you hear? The Queen took a gift from a human," one said, her blue scales glittering in disbelief. In the guard hall, armored sentinels traded nervous glances. "If that's true," one muttered, "the old laws are broken." Even the nobles in the crystal towers of the capital sent encrypted messages to their home planets, wondering what it could mean for the Empire. Meanwhile, in the lowest levels of the palace, Elias tried to pretend nothing had changed. He scrubbed the metal corridors, his back aching, his mind racing. Every worker he passed fell silent when he entered. Some looked at him with fear, others with quiet admiration. His daughter, Mira, didn't understand the storm that was forming. She spent the morning drawing on her little notebook, a picture of the Queen smiling with the toy in her hand. She had no idea that her simple kindness was now the center of a galaxy's conversation. Late that day, while Elias was polishing the upper hall, a shadow fell across the floor. He turned and froze. A tall figure in golden armor stood before him, Commander Ryak, head of the Queen's Guard. His reptilian eyes gleamed like molten metal. "You are Elias Trent," Ryak said flatly. It wasn't a question. "Yes, Commander," Elias answered, bowing. "The Queen summons you," Ryak said. "Both of you," Elias's stomach twisted. "My daughter too?" Ryak's jaw tightened. "Yes, bring her now." As Elias walked with Mira through the silent halls, hundreds of eyes followed them. Alien officers stopped to stare. Some bowed slightly, others turned away afraid. The human janitor and his little girl were now symbols of something no one could explain. They entered the grand throne room once again, but this time the hall was not empty. The High Council stood assembled, dozens of alien leaders from across the Empire. Their robes shimmered with colors unseen by human eyes, and their faces showed a mix of shock, anger, and curiosity. The Queen sat upon her throne, calm and radiant, her expression unreadable. The small toy starbird rested beside her hand. Elias knelt immediately, pulling Mira gently to bow with him. "Your Majesty," he whispered, his voice trembling, "you called for us?" The Queen's voice filled the hall, soft yet powerful. "Yes, rise, Elias of Earth, and you, Mira." Mira looked up timidly. "Hello again," she said in her small voice. A low murmur spread through the council chamber. The Queen raised a hand and silence fell. "You have caused much noise in my empire, little one," she said. "Do you know that?" Mira frowned. "I didn't mean to cause trouble, ma'am. I just wanted you to smile." For the briefest moment, something like warmth flickered across the Queen's eyes. She turned to her council. "You see," she said. "Without command, without fear, she speaks with honesty. Even among all of you who claim to serve me, none has done this." A tall insectoid noble stepped forward, his antennae trembling. "Your Majesty," he said, "forgive me, but this is dangerous. Showing favor to humans could be seen as weakness. The lesser races may think you have lost your divine fire." "Lesser?" The Queen's gaze turned toward him. The single word carried the weight of 1,000 suns. The noble flinched and fell silent. Elias held his breath. He could feel the air vibrating with tension. The Queen rose slowly from her throne. "Perhaps," she said, "you all have forgotten what power truly is. You bow to me because you fear me. But this child—" She looked down at Mira. She did not fear, she gave. That is strength. A silence deeper than space filled the chamber. No one dared reply, then softly the Queen spoke again. "Elias Trent," she said, "you have served this palace in silence for many years. Yet your child has done what none of my kind ever could. You will stay here as my guests, not as servants." Elias's mouth fell open. "Guests, Your Majesty?" "Yes," she said. Your daughter has reminded me of something I thought was lost. I wish to understand it again. The council erupted in whispers. Humans, guests of the Queen? This is madness. It will shake the Empire. But the Queen didn't care. Her gaze was fixed on the small blue starbird glowing faintly beside her throne. Kindness, she said softly to herself, can travel farther than light. Elias bowed deeply, emotion choking his voice. Thank you, Your Majesty. Mira smiled brightly. I can show you how to make another one, she said. A ripple of shock and disbelief went through the hall, but the Queen's lips curved again into a faint smile. And with that second smile, unseen yet deeply felt, the rumor that had begun as a whisper became something much greater. By nightfall, entire fleets spoke of the human child who touched the Queen's heart. Some called it a miracle, others a threat, but everyone agreed on one thing: the galaxy had changed. The great halls of the Galactic Palace no longer felt the same. The silence that once ruled had been replaced by a strange tension, half awe, half fear. The story of the Queen's smile had crossed the stars, turning into legend overnight. Yet inside the palace the atmosphere was heavy, like a storm waiting to break. Elias could feel it every time he walked through the corridors. Eyes followed him everywhere. Servants paused mid-step. Guards lowered their voices when he passed. Some looked at him with quiet respect. Others looked as if he had brought danger into their world. But none of that mattered to Mira. To her, the palace was now a place of wonder. She had drawn pictures of the Queen, the starbird, and glowing skies full of peace. She carried her drawing pad everywhere, and sometimes she'd hum softly, unaware that her little tunes echoed down ancient halls. That day, a messenger came, an armored guard with a silver crest. The Queen requests your presence, he said firmly. Elias bowed, his heart racing. Now? Yes, both of you, Mira clapped her hands. Maybe she wants to see the new toy I made. Elias didn't answer. His hands trembled as he took hers. He knew each meeting with the Queen could mean life or death. The throne room was dim when they entered. The Queen sat alone this time, no council, no guards, just her and the vast emptiness of her hall. The blue light from the starry windows shimmered against her silver armor. Approach, she said softly. Elias walked forward, guiding Mira. When they reached the base of the throne, he bowed low. Mira, still holding her new little creation, a tiny spinning globe made from bits of crystal, waited silently. The Queen's gaze lingered on her for a moment. You made another gift, she said, her voice quieter than before. Mira smiled. Yes. It spins when you tap it, Elias whispered quickly. Be respectful, Mira. But the Queen's tone remained calm, almost gentle. Show me. Mira placed the toy on the steps of the throne and tapped it. The little globe began to spin slowly, scattering beams of colored light across the hall. For a brief moment, the walls of the palace glittered like galaxies in motion. The Queen's breath caught quietly. Her fingers clenched on her armrest as if something deep within her had awakened. Elias noticed her expression, so subtle, yet filled with something he couldn't name. Sorrow, maybe. Memory. Mira, the Queen said after a long pause. Do you know why your small gift matters? Mira tilted her head. Because it makes you smile? The Queen gave a faint nod. Yes, but also because it reminds me of someone. She rose slowly from her throne, and as she did, the lights in the hall dimmed. The stars beyond the glass windows brightened, painting her face in soft silver glow. Long ago, the Queen said, her voice distant now. Before the wars, before the Empire stretched across galaxies. I had a daughter. Elias froze. He dared not speak. She was small, like you, the Queen continued, her eyes fixed on the spinning globe. She loved to make things that glowed. She would leave them in my chambers so I would never forget to look at the stars. But when the Great War came, I sent her away to safety. The ship never reached its destination. Her voice faltered for the first time. The mighty Queen, who had destroyed fleets with a whisper, was trembling. I closed my heart after that day, she said. I forbade anyone to speak to me. I ruled with fear, because it was easier than remembering. Elias felt his throat tighten. Mira's small eyes widened. She stepped closer without fear. I'm sorry, she said softly. You miss her, don't you? The queen looked down at her, and for the first time in centuries her eyes shone, not with power but with tears. "Yes," she whispered. "Every day." Mira reached up and placed her hand gently on the queen's finger. "You can still remember her. Maybe she's watching you from the stars." The queen looked at her hand, small, warm, human, and for a long moment she said nothing. Then she slowly knelt so that her gaze met Mira's. "You speak like her," she murmured. "Brave, kind." Elias watched, stunned. No ruler, no god, no being of such power had ever knelt before anyone, let alone a child. When the queen finally stood again, she said softly, "You remind me that not all things are lost. That sometimes, even across galaxies, love returns." Mira smiled and looked up at the star-filled ceiling. "Then she sent me to you," she said simply. The queen's lips curved again, faint but real. Perhaps she did. For a few moments there was no sound in the great hall, only the soft hum of the spinning globe as its lights flickered across the marble floor. When Elias and Mira were dismissed, they walked back in silence. But the queen did not move for a long time. She stood before the window, her reflection merging with the stars beyond. Her hand rested gently on the toy starbird that Mira had given her days ago. "You fly when you're happy," she whispered again. "Maybe now. I can fly too." Far away, the stars shimmered brighter, as if answering her. And somewhere in that vast silence of space, it felt as though a small voice laughed, a child's laugh echoing through the cosmos. The queen closed her eyes. For the first time in a millennium, her heart was not heavy with grief, but light with memory. The gift had done more than make her smile. It had made her remember what it meant to be alive. The news spread like wildfire through the stars. The Galactic Queen had smiled, spoken kindly, and taken humans as guests. To the common people of the Empire, it was a miracle. To the High Council, it was blasphemy. Inside the Council's chamber, a vast sphere floating above a molten sea, dozens of alien lords gathered. Their faces glowed under the crimson light. Each belonged to a race older than humankind, proud and bound by ancient law, and each felt the same rising emotion, fear disguised as anger. "This cannot stand," hissed Lord Virex, his scaled fingers slamming the table. "The queen is losing her divine fire. To smile at a human child? To kneel before one? What next? Shall she marry their kind?" A dozen voices roared in agreement. Another counselor, a tall, ghostly being with 4 eyes, spoke coldly. "If word continues to spread, every colony will question her authority. The Empire was built on obedience, not sentiment." "But she is the queen," said an older member quietly. "Her will is law. Even law can be broken," Virex growled. "If the queen forgets her duty, then the council must remind her." As their debate raged far above them, the queen stood in her observation chamber, staring into the stars. She already knew what was coming. She could feel their fury through the psychic currents that connected her to the ruling minds of the galaxy. Yet she felt no fear. For the first time in centuries, she felt clarity. On the floor below, Elias and Mira were enjoying a simple meal in the servants' garden, though they were no longer servants. A pair of alien guards stood at a distance watching. Elias tried to eat, but his mind was restless. "Mira," he said softly, "you remember what I told you about staying quiet?" She nodded, chewing on a piece of bread. "Yes, Daddy." "Good," he said, though his heart ached. "Because not everyone is happy about us being here." Mira frowned. "But I didn't do anything wrong." He smiled faintly. "You didn't. But sometimes truth scares people more than lies." Before he could say more, heavy footsteps echoed across the marble. Commander Rayek appeared, his armor gleaming gold under the twin suns. "Elias Trent," he said sharply. "You and your daughter must come with me." Elias stood quickly. "What's wrong?" "The council demands your presence." Mira looked up, confused. "Did they like my toy too?" Rake's face was unreadable. "Not quite." Moments later, they entered the vast chamber where the council awaited. The air was thick with energy. Elias could feel it pressing against his skin. Judgment, hate, and something older than both. The queen stood at the center, tall and calm, her silver robes flowing like liquid light. She did not look at the counselors. Her eyes were fixed on Mira and Elias. Lord Virex spoke first. Your Majesty, we convene here out of concern for your recent actions. Concern? The Queen said softly. Or fear? Fear of weakness, Vrex snapped. You have broken the ancient silence. You have shown mercy to a lesser being. This, he pointed a clawed finger toward Elias and Mira, has disrupted the order of 1,000 worlds. The Queen's voice remained steady. Order built only on fear is not strength. A wave of whispers swept through the chamber. Another counselor leaned forward, her translucent wings fluttering angrily. If your heart guides you toward humans, then your mind no longer belongs to the throne. You risk the unity of the stars. Elias gritted his teeth. He wanted to speak, but the Queen raised her hand. Enough, she said, her voice cutting through the air like light through water. She turned to the humans. You will hear things now that no human was ever meant to hear. But you must not be afraid. Mira clutched her father's hand. I'm not afraid, she whispered. The Queen smiled faintly. Of course you're not. Then she faced the council. I have ruled for 1,000 years. I have seen empires rise and die, species bloom and fade. Yet never have I seen courage like this child's. She gave without expectation. She reminded me that a heart unguarded is not weakness, it is power. Power? Vrex roared. Power lies in control, in fear. Then you are already dead, the Queen said. Her eyes began to glow, soft but fierce. The walls of the chamber trembled. You have forgotten what binds the stars together. It is not fear, but faith. And faith begins with kindness. The counselors recoiled as the air shimmered with her energy. The molten sea below rippled violently. If any of you doubt me, she said, her voice echoing across the chamber, then challenge me openly. But remember, before you strike, ask yourself what you are fighting for. Silence. No one moved. Finally, the Queen turned and motioned to Rake. Take Elias and Mira to the East Tower. They are under my protection. As they left, whispers erupted again, fierce and panicked. The Queen ignored them. Her gaze remained fixed on the horizon of stars beyond the glass wall. A storm was coming. She knew it. The council would not stay silent, but deep within her, for the first time in centuries, burned something far stronger than fear. Hope. And in the quiet of that enormous chamber, she whispered to herself, let them rage. The stars no longer belonged to their fear. The galaxy held its breath. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Queen summoned every noble, warlord, and counselor to the Grand Assembly of Stars, a gathering called only in times of rebellion or coronation. No one knew which this would be, but every being in the Empire felt the same tension burning through the void. Something was about to change forever. In the skies above the capital world, fleets hovered like silver insects. From the moons to the outer rings, envoys and armies arrived. The Queen's throne world had become the eye of a storm. Elias stood by the great window of the East Tower, looking out over the sea of ships that filled the heavens. His heart was heavy with worry. Mira, he said softly, no matter what happens, you must stay behind me, all right? The little girl nodded, holding her favorite toy, the repaired starbird that once made the Queen smile. Do you think she'll be okay, Daddy? He hesitated. I don't know, but I think she's stronger than anyone realizes. Below them, the Grand Plaza glowed with silver light. Tens of thousands of alien citizens filled the square, looking up at the massive floating dais where the Queen would appear. The air shimmered with the hum of tension and energy. Inside the palace, the Queen stood alone in the Hall of Origins, wearing the ancient armor of her house, a radiant mix of light and shadow. Commander Rake approached carefully. Your Majesty, he said, the council is ready. They demand an explanation for your defiance. The Queen's gaze was steady. Then they shall have one. Rake hesitated. If you speak against them, they will brand you a traitor to your own laws. Then the laws must change, she said quietly. When the hour struck, the Queen ascended the dais. The galaxy watched in silence. Her image was projected across millions of worlds. Every screen, every holoview, every soldier's visor filled with her shining figure. My children of the stars, she began, her voice carrying across the vacuum through the psychic network that bound her empire. You were taught to fear me, to kneel, to obey. For 1,000 years I ruled through silence, believing fear kept us strong. Her crown blazed brighter and her tone deepened. But I have seen something greater than fear. The crowd stirred. The High Council members exchanged worried glances, whispering among themselves. Strength, she continued, is not in cruelty. Power is not in silence. It lies in the heart that dares to love even when the universe has forgotten how. Vrex stepped forward, his armor gleaming like bloodstone. Your Majesty, enough, he shouted. This talk of love and kindness weakens the Empire. You dishonor the ancient ways. The Queen turned to face him. Ancient ways built an empire of slaves and corpses, she said. And still you call it peace. Tell me, Vrex, what do your laws protect? Power or pride? Vrex growled. They protect order. Then let us see what your order does when faced with truth, she said. She raised her hand and a soft beam of light appeared beside her. The image of Mira flickered into view, the small human girl holding her handmade toy. This child, the Queen said, spoke to me when none of you dared. She showed me courage without strength, compassion without command. And you call her weak? A murmur swept through the assembly. Some of the lesser races in the crowd bowed their heads, whispering prayers. Others gasped as they saw the girl's image, a human child, innocent and unafraid. She made me remember who I was before the wars, the Queen said. Before grief turned my heart to stone. If that is weakness, then I choose weakness over your strength. Vrex roared and raised his staff, channeling crackling red energy. Then you are unfit to rule. The sky darkened. Before he could strike, the Queen extended her arm. A sphere of pure white light exploded around her, silencing the storm. The ground trembled. Enough, she thundered. If you believe your power greater than mercy, then come, test it. The challenge hung in the air. No one moved. The energy around the Queen shimmered like a living sun, her armor glowing as though forged by stars themselves. One by one, the counselors lowered their heads. Even Vrex fell silent, trembling. He could not meet her gaze. The Queen turned slowly to the vast crowd of beings watching from the plaza and across the cosmos. From this day forward, she declared, no race shall be lesser. No world shall kneel in silence. The time of fear ends today. A wave of light burst from the dais, sweeping across the capital and far into the void. It wasn't destructive, it was warm, like the rising of a new sun. Across the Empire, people lifted their eyes in wonder. In the East Tower, Mira watched the glowing sky and smiled. She's not sad anymore, she whispered. Elias knelt beside her, tears in his eyes. No, sweetheart, he said. She finally remembered what it means to be human. Down below, the Queen stood tall, her crown dimming as her words echoed one last time through the stars. Let the galaxy remember this day. For the first time in 1,000 years, your Queen has spoken, not as a ruler, but as one of you. And with that, the Galactic Queen turned, her silver cloak fluttering like wings of light, as the crowd fell to their knees, not from fear, but from reverence. When dawn came to the capital world, the twin suns rose together, painting the horizon gold and silver. Their light touched the marble towers, the shining ships, and the wide plazas below where billions watched in silent awe. The galaxy had changed overnight. The Queen's words had become law not by decree, but by faith. For the first time in 1,000 years, the great banners of the Empire did not carry the mark of conquest. They carried the emblem of unity, a small starbird encircled by light. The same toy Mira had made. Elias stood with his daughter on the palace balcony, gazing down at the endless sea of people gathered below. His rough hands trembled as he held hers. You see that, Mira? He whispered. They're cheering. For you. Mira smiled sleepily. They're cheering for the Queen, she said softly. I just gave her a toy. Elias laughed quietly, but his voice broke. Sometimes the smallest gift changes the biggest hearts. In the plaza below, aliens of every shape and color stood side by side. Former enemies, warriors from worlds that had once burned each other's skies, were now sharing the same peace. Holograms of the Queen's speech replayed on colossal screens. No race shall be lesser. No voice shall be silent. Inside the palace, the Queen walked slowly through the grand corridor, her silver robes brushing the floor. She no longer wore her crown. It rested on the pedestal where her throne once stood. Power no longer needed a seat. Commander Rake met her at the archway. Your Majesty, he said quietly, the council has disbanded. Many have sworn loyalty to the new code. The rest fled, the Queen nodded. Let them go. They will learn in time that fear cannot outfly light. Her gaze softened as she turned toward the balcony where Elias and Mira stood. "Has the human child eaten?" she asked. Rake blinked. "Ah, yes, Your Majesty, twice." A smile touched her lips. "Good. Hunger must never follow kindness." When she entered the balcony, the crowd below fell to their knees. But she raised a hand. "No more kneeling," she said, her voice calm yet commanding. "Stand, my children of the stars. Today we rise together." A wave of emotion swept across the plaza. The sound of millions standing echoed like thunder. The Queen stepped beside Elias and Mira. Elias bowed his head deeply. "Your Majesty," he said, "you've given them hope. You've given all of us a future." She looked at him, then at Mira, whose small hands held the same toy that had begun it all. "No," she said softly. "She gave it to all of us." The Queen bent down and placed her hand gently on Mira's shoulder. "Do you know what your gift did, little one?" Mira shook her head. "It made you smile." The Queen's eyes glowed softly, reflecting the sun's rising behind her. "It reminded me how to live." The plaza erupted in light. Thousands of small drones took to the air, forming glowing patterns in the sky. Rings of stars, children's faces, and finally a single symbol, the starbird. Across the galaxy, planets replayed the same display. On every screen, every world, the story was the same. A human child's kindness had saved the Queen of Galaxies. Years later, stories would call it the dawn of compassion, the day when the endless wars ended. Statues of the Queen stood across planets, always depicted not with her crown, but with a small girl offering her a gift. In her private garden, the Queen often walked alone, barefoot among the glowing flowers that bloomed in zero gravity. She would pause sometimes to watch a single mechanical bird, Mira's starbird, flying in slow circles above the pond. Elias continued his work as caretaker of the palace gardens, though his tools were no longer for cleaning floors but for tending life. And Mira, as she grew, the galaxy called her the starborn child, a symbol of peace. Yet she remained the same, humble, curious, and bright-eyed, still building toys out of scraps and laughter. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned violet, Mira looked up at the Queen. "Do you think people will remember us forever?" she asked. The Queen smiled. "They will remember what you taught them, that even the smallest light can guide the lost." Mira thought for a moment, then released the starbird into the air. It flew higher and higher, its wings glowing brighter until it vanished into the stars. The Queen watched it disappear and whispered, "Fly when you're happy." Above them, the stars shimmered brighter as though bowing to that ancient promise. And for the first time, the galaxy itself seemed to breathe again, free, alive, and human. The Queen turned to Elias and Mira, her voice soft but sure. "Let this be our legacy. Not thrones, not crowns, but the courage to be kind." And as night settled over the shining world, the empire that was once ruled by fear entered a new age, the age of light.